And the idea was to literally make it a never-ending kind of discoverability platform. So if you're searching for your favorite artist, the episodes show you the guests that are on it. The guests show you the Broadway shows they've been in. The Broadway shows show you the cast that is in it. The cast shows you the episodes they've been in on the network. It's just a circular thing. And we tried to make it a really easy way to discover the content you didn't know you needed to listen to by any sort of organic means that made sense to you.
What role does technical skill play in shaping a podcast network structure and operations? For my guest, it means building a tech stack and experience platform designed with both discoverability and creator support in mind. His approach challenges assumptions about what it takes to support creators at scale and how automation is quietly reshaping daily operations. Alan Seals started in computer science, became a Broadway performer, ran tech at Google, and ultimately founded the Broadway Podcast Network in 2019, which is close to 200 podcasts now. For him, every operational decision, from designing a network website to cross-promoting shows, even down to choosing a sonic brand, loops back to the core idea. Create a tech-enabled home for theater podcasts that functions like a true Broadway community, both online and off. I'm Greg Washman, host of this amazing show, Podcast Network Insights. I spent 15 years in advertising sales, and since 2021, I've been immersed in the podcast industry. So I believe life is about time and relationships. You never know where one conversation can lead. And I've built a lot of relationships and spent a lot of time talking to different kinds of podcasters, from the solo creators just getting started to the heads of industry-leading networks, like my conversation today. If you've ever wondered whether joining a network makes sense, how these networks actually run, other networks you could join, advertise with, partner with, learn from, well then my goal is to give you a real look behind the scenes so you can confidently navigate whether you host, produce, sponsor, or run a network. As you listen, watch for how Alan connects the dots between a network's technical backbone and a theater family's value, from search functions that let you follow actors across multiple shows to operational choices that support creators who care less about code and more about collaboration. This show wouldn't be possible with some amazing companies and sponsors, so I must say thank you. The show is produced by the incredible team at Stories and Strategies. If you don't know Doug and Emily, I suggest you reach out and learn what they do. I'm using RSS.com for my podcast hosting. This podcast hosting is more than just storage. RSS.com provides so many features to ensure a great podcast experience. Easy to use, maximum distribution, a community to learn from, monetization solutions, and so much more. And they have a plan that works great for podcast networks, just not like individuals like me. Systems and processes are key for consistency needed in podcasting, which is why I use Northflow, a dedicated podcast project management tool built by podcasters for podcasters. We all know the power of repurposing, which is why I use Cast Magic to help me repurpose my content, help me give my guests their assets, and so much more. Check out the links in the show notes and stay tuned after this interview, as there's more to the conversation as I share some of my key takeaways. With that said, let's get into this conversation. Well, Alan, the show's called Podcast Network Insights, so I always start with the first question. When I say podcast networks, what comes to mind?
My own. my own sweat, tears, a lot of fun, a lot of trouble, but overall mostly fun. A family, I guess. It's, for me, Broadway Podcast Network. We have tried to kind of mimic a bit of the camaraderie and the closeness that you get when you're in a cast with somebody and you're performing with somebody day in and 8 times a week. So yeah, when I think of my network, I just think of like the family and that we've built.
So I guess to that point, how big is community to BPN?
Oh, it's very big. Yeah, I mean, because in theater in general, theater in New York City, professional theater, we're talking Broadway, is much smaller than you may think. It's a $2 billion industry for the city, but the people who run the theater, it's a lot of the same people who have started agencies and started companies that are a one-to-many relationship, where they're holding a lot of the keys. And so it becomes kind of a big family in that it might not, I was gonna say it might not be your chosen family, but I guess if you're deciding to be in Broadway, yes, it is your chosen family a bit, because you're choosing to come back over and over again.
So what made you start the BPN? Because your background's in tech. How'd you get into Broadway, yet alone start a Broadway network?
Oh my goodness. So how much time we got? When I was a small wee network lad, I was going between sports and computers and theater, musical theater. And so growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do and was kind of doing all three. In high school, blew out my ACL. That got sports off the picture. And then I went to college ultimately for computer science, got that degree, then became an actor, moved to New York in 2007. And the writer's strike was happening then. They were striking over DVD residuals. Remember them DVDs? So, yeah, they were striking over DVDs. And there was nothing to audition for. No one was writing anything. I fell back on my comp sci degree and ended up, keep this story short, ended up at Google as an engineer in 2013. And being back at Google got me involved in the Talks at Google program, which is like TED Talks for Google. The people I used to be performing with, some had made to Broadway. I started bringing those Broadway performers into Google to do Google Talks events, and it snowballed from there to I ended up becoming the first global lead of the Talks program. That got me back into the Broadway ecosystem because it was snowballing with the celebrities and the press reps and everybody who was coming in, and we ended up doing movies and TV stars, and it was this big thing. And then, to answer your question, I was up one night it was like summer around this time, 2016, 2017, I actually forget. But I was looking for a theater podcast to listen to, and I couldn't find anything that was happy or good audio quality, because I'm being in tech. I'm an audiophile, so I'm like I don't want to listen to someone like breathing into the mic and whatever, or was active and whatnot. So I said, oh, okay, I think I maybe could start my own, because I can just text some friends and start interviewing them. And it was just something to do. And then about a month after I started mine, the algorithms kicked in, and I started meeting a bunch of people who were like, oh, my podcast. And so many people had theater podcasts that I didn't know about, because maybe being in podcasting, discoverability is freaking hard. And even at that time, too, when there were still, only several million, now I think there's 6 million in iTunes, but discoverability was hard. So around this time, I met a lead producer on Broadway, because she came in with her show for a Google Talks event. I asked her to be on my podcast because I didn't have a producer yet. And then after the interview, she and I were just talking, and I was like, I got this idea. What do you think about this? It's let's call it the Netflix of Broadway podcast. And she's like, sign me up. I'm done. And then, like, by the end of the conversation, we'd agreed to do it, and launched then in October of 2019, right before the pandemic. So that's the
story. There you go.
That's the story.
So then, if we look at community and how you've mentioned, the fact that it's family and a network's family, then what is the value that BPN is providing in the space now? Anyone that's listening to us, watching us, it doesn't matter. You can't see the website, but if you went to the website, it's a unique website that BPN's built. So if discovery is so difficult, like, where does BPN, the website, and how you've built this network come into play? Yeah,
the website is a brainchild of mine. Again, given the technical background, I can design and lead. At the time, we had 1.5 developers, including myself, who were building the site. And the idea was to literally make it a never-ending kind of discoverability platform. So if you're searching for your favorite artist, or the favorite show that they're in, or the favorite podcast that they've been on, you can hit a podcast on the landing page. It shows you episodes that are in it. The episodes show you the guests that are on it. The guests show you the Broadway shows they've been in. The Broadway shows show you the cast that is in it. The cast shows you the episodes they've been in on the network. It's just a circular thing, and you can make your playlists. You can favorite things. So we really designed it to be one of the easiest. We tried to make it a really easy way to discover the content you didn't know you needed to listen to by any sort of organic means that made sense to you.
So then, am I trying, as a podcaster on the network, trying to drive people to BPN's page for discoverability? Or like, how do you get the name out there? How do you get the branding? Or how do you even get people back to this amazing database you've built, right, as a network?
Well, it's fun because of the we're SEO first, of course, SEO and mobile first, but because of the way that it's designed, like if Lin-Manuel's in the news, or Keisha Thomas or Norm Lewis or any of these big Broadway names who are anytime they're announced in something new, people are out there searching for them, and then we see a spike in hits that way. But being part of the network, one of the advantages that we have is that everyone's hosted on the same host, so we have network-wide cross promotion going on all the time. So we're always advertising each other's podcasts. At the beginning, we've got a little audio logo that plays. It's my voice that says, "You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network," and it's like when you hear the of HBO or the from Netflix, it's
Sonic branding.
It's sonic branding, yeah. So we got one of those.
When did you think of doing that? When did you sonic brand? When did you start branding BPN and see the effects of that?
Oh,
was
right
that
from
early
the beginning.
On? Okay.
Yeah, right as we launched, because it was an early feature that Megaphone, that's where we host, it was an early feature that Megaphone had and still has. So we just made use of it, and I said, this is perfect. We need an ident every single time, and we also get celebrities. We've got like, I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, I'm Patti LuPone, I'm Glenn Close, I'm so-and-so. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network. So we've got a whole slew of things. Sometimes we'll rotate me out and put in some others as well. But it's always like, we're valid. We got some people here.
So that sounds like the radio model, right? Like, how do I get all the celebrities? So
yeah,
did you grab that from the radio, or you just saw that was a great opportunity, or you even started asking, like, how could we just ask Lin-Manuel, like, can you do this?
It was kind of organic. My co-founder, Dori Berenstein, she's the lead producer who we co-founded this together, and it was her idea to do the celebrity idents. But then it just became a thing where, like, I was already doing it for my solo podcast, because you could call my podcast was podcast number 1 or ground zero of the whole network, right? And so I was always doing it on mine as a cold open of, hey, I'm Greg Wasserman. You're listening to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals. And so we just had all of these things, and we've used them in so many different ways. But yeah, like the branding and the user trust, and again, the going back to the family of it all, like we're always the part of the reason that we started the network too was to centralize a lot of the business aspect of it, because creatives create, they are not necessarily the best business people or technologically savvy. And if you talk to any professional actor, they're like, shit, in 2020 I had to become my own videographer and lighting designer and blah blah blah, because everyone's doing self tapes in their living room. So like what I'm trying to do is just make this as easy as possible, take the technical burden off of people, give them a platform, give them a studio, however, because we have podcasters from all over the globe. If they're in New York, then come into the studio here in Times Square. If they're remote, then we share a virtual recording platform, log in with them. And we centralize a lot of the ad sales and outreach and guest booking. Press agents now send us their clients, and they'll say, like, here, this person's got this project coming up, send it out to the network, and we send that out, and then you'll have like 20 people responding to the press agent, all booking. They sent one email and they get 20 interview requests back. So it's fun for everybody on both sides.
All right, I want to go down that path, but I want to finish up on the sonic branding piece. If I'm a network operator listening to this, you would recommend start with a sonic brand, start branding from day one, And then how would you go about, is it unique to the fact that you've got talent at the BPN, or could any network really, in a sense, be able to go like, hey, just like radio does, but it doesn't have to be the big name, getting someone like, hey, do this host read ad and say, you're listening to yada yada on the whatever network, right?
So watch your feet. I'm about to name drop.
Okay.
I've interviewed Oprah and Reese Witherspoon and Matthew McConaughey and Jake Gyllenhaal and like the Property Brothers, some of my favorite guys in the world. I don't care about celebrities. They're people that, you know, how the saying goes, they poop just like the rest of us.
Yep.
And so hearing a celebrity say something, for me personally, does nothing. Like legitimately, I would rather just hear information, real information. So my advice, yes, always do an ident or a sonic branding, because I know, like, it's a quality measure for me. I know that I love story podcasts. So I listen, if it's a Q Code podcast, shout out to Q Code, love anything they do. When I hear that Q Code, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Okay, cool. Fable and Folly, same thing. So I want to be able to say, all right, I am going to associate this noise or this voice or whatever it is, the name, with a certain type of quality. So I would recommend, yes, always do a sonic ident, or a sonic ident, a sonic brand.
There you go. You heard it. And Alan's not the only one that said it on the show. There's a couple that have gone down that path. So I think more networks should be taking advantage of something like that.
It's an easy feature to do that doesn't cost you anything.
This is true. All right, so let's go back to the last comment on tools. And you've built one hell of, I mean, as an engineer, you've built one hell of a platform. How do you like what works for you in operationalizing your network?
In terms of like the tech stack or the people?
I mean, all the above. Like, what makes BPN work?
Right now, today, because of the tools that have popped up in the last 16 months, a lot of automation, and me sitting down with my favorite friend Claude Code and making my ideas into reality. And, you know, I'll go on a tangent for a second. Like, with my technical background, I was designing policies and speaking directly to engineers, and I was a technical program manager at Google for forever. And so I was helping them prioritize feature requests and take apart giant, triage bugs and figure out what was going on. So I know how to design a system. And Brooklyn.
There you go.
And this might happen for a while because people like to double park out there. So I know how to design a system. And before, like when we first built the BPN site, I was saying we were using another developer. He was writing all the code, super nice guy, contractor. And it took like 8 months to get it where we were comfortable with saying, okay, it's where we want it to be, and took a lot of money and, money and time. And so now I could rebuild exactly what we did in 8 months in probably 2 weeks for my $200 a month Claude Max Claude Code Max subscription. So that's not to say there's not a place for this, because what I want to say on that before people come at me is that same developer using Claude Code to his advantage would be that much better than I can be doing it. So I'll leave that aside. But right now, it's a lot of automation. And I'm like, oh, okay, so are we thinking about hiring somebody because we have a shortcoming over here? Well, let's hire someone to run an automation, to develop an automation. Or like we have someone that does payroll, accounting. I'm the technical side. We've got sales sporadically. Like I've kind of farmed out the sales a little bit because that, going back to the insularness, is that a word? Going back to how insular Broadway is, people like to buy what they already know from who they already know. And so I've farmed that out in a way where we've made our inventory available to other people selling other products that are not just audio insertions. And so we are a part of their offering and everyone benefits from it. So it's a lot easier in that regard. But let's see. Your question was, how does it operate? It operates pretty smoothly. We've got, like I said, we've got the back office, the sales, technical stack, and then the podcasters themselves. we've created the tools either via automation or training videos. I'll just do screen recordings and send things out. And like I try to give editing tips, and people are like, how do I do such and such in GarageBand? How do I do such and such in Final Cut? So I'm trying to figure all this out. But I'll send all this information out. I'm a Premiere Pro guy, but I have to figure out how what I'm doing applies to what they are in. So we're giving the automation, giving the platform over to them to say, here are all the tools you need to remove the friction, to remove any barriers that you may have in order to do what you do best, which is create and interview and whatever it is. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. Because, I mean, if I look at it, what makes you unique, and this is what I love about every network operator I talk to, like how their background is, like your background is in tech ultimately, right? So if I look at someone whose background was in radio, who started a podcast network, or someone whose background was in ad sales, like mine, who started a network, it's going to be a very different network. Like their skill set is going to drive the way the network operates. Yours being a computer science person who worked on the engineering, who's figured out how to code for the most part because you've been doing that with Google. You've got an understanding of how to build BPN to fit from a technical standpoint, and then you outsource the sales side versus someone else who may have kept that inside, right? So I think that's where anyone that's listening has to keep that in mind. It's like, all right, what's your skill set as an operator? But also hearing someone like Alan going, hold on, I may not be a coder, but I could figure out there's things that I could be doing to automate. And as you've said, either you're doing it yourself with Claude for $200 or you're hiring someone else to do it. But ultimately, that's what's making your network from a technical standpoint operate as well and efficiently as it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, there's a place for AI. There's not a place for AI. Talking about AI instead of hiring an intern or something, like it's a touchy subject. And I know that there are people that disagree with me. And I will say, if we want to go down this path for a second, I'll say that like everybody now can just open up their computer and get the keys to a jet. And if they decide to ignore learning how to fly that jet, they can go back to their cars or their bike or just walk, and they can get to the same place just a lot slower. But those who do know how to fly the jet are going to get there faster. You still need a pilot or two, but it's a lot faster to get you there.
This is true. So from the sales side, how does BPN make money? Is it just ad sales? Ad
sales, sponsorships, podcasts. Podcasting as a service, PaaS, we'll call it that. So like we won a Webby Award. Disney Theatrical reached out to us and said, hey, this was 2 years ago. Disney Theatrical reached out and they said, Aladdin's coming up on their 10-year anniversary on Broadway. Let's do something. Let's do like a behind the scenes thing. And so we met with them and came up with a 5-ish, 6, ended up being 5 plus a bonus episode docu-series that we went back and interviewed all the original principal cast members, all the original creatives that helped make and write the show, and talked about how Aladdin, as it is now, one of the most successful Broadway productions in history, almost never opened because it was so bad originally. And this is all in there. And it just didn't work. The story didn't work. The music didn't work. Anyway, they were just, refining it. And we put together this whole series like you're watching, like you would go to Netflix now and watch a documentary on how something got made behind the scenes. We did this in an audio form, and 26, so 24, we won a Webby for that podcast. And, so they hired us that was a podcast service that we were hired to create. We've done that for some others as well. So like we'll be contracted to show up in a place and record people speaking if it's Broadway content or Broadway people or whatnot. And then like we'll turn that into a feed for them or work with them to teach them how to create the feed. Some shows themselves have their own dedicated podcasts, like a companion podcast, like a TV or a movie show does. So sometimes they're already producing it and we host it and share the ad revenue. Sometimes they don't want to touch any of it and we do it all for them. So we're very flexible in that regard.
It's an interesting one. If I think about episode we did with Mark LaCour from OGGN, big core of his business is ultimately going to events and being the podcast network, but the entertainment, the host and so forth. So like you're finding another different revenue stream. Was that one you thought of? Someone came to you and it's just like, oh, I never thought about this. Like this became something. Like, are you actively out there searching for those, or they just kind of come to you because BPN is the destination, and they're like, all right, this is a place I can go to and get this created?
Kind of both.
Okay.
People come to us now asking all sorts of weird questions with weird requests, and I mean, literally, I had a call this morning that I sent out an offer for them to join the network, and they're reviewing the agreement because they had a podcast. They have a podcast that they're on hiatus now because they're like, this is too hard. I can't produce all of this on my own. I love podcasting, but I don't like the other side. And I'm like, we gotcha. So that's in the works. That came out of a conversation. Literally, this person was a guest on another person's podcast that I was audio engineering for the network. So it became circular like that. But then through the business side, it'll be like Broadway. Broadway is always trying to reinvent themselves. This industry is always trying to figure out how to do something that hasn't been done before, or do something another show hasn't done before, or stand out in this overcrowded world of influencers. And yeah, that's a thing now. So how do you continue to be relevant? And they'll come to us and they say, oh, we got this crazy idea for this audio thing, and is it possible? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Or we've got this idea, and I say, yes, and let's also change it and do this. Because given our experience now, what are we, 26? So 27 years we've been doing this, that we've seen and produced thousands of episodes, literally thousands of episodes across these 7 years, some completely original, some scripted, some interviews, some live. Like, we've done it all. There's cons, there's conventions. Broadway Con is a thing every year. And so we go and we have a room, and for all 3 days of Broadway Con, we're just cycling through interviews in Broadway Con. Like, we go where the people are, where the fans are, to let them know this content exists. And because we are where the fans are, that's where the creatives, the producers are looking, and they see us. And because of my connections and Dory's connections, my co-founder, they know where to find us. And we're always going out pitching new ideas to new people, of course, but we have a lot of influx. Literally, right before I hopped on this interview, I had an email of somebody wanting to join the network that I've never heard of. I'm like, all right, so after I'm done with this, I'm going to go check out their stats. So you never know. We're not one size fits all for any means.
And I think that's a good, if anyone network operators listening to this, it's like, by being a network head, you've got the ability to say yes, and you get the ability to explore things beyond. If we go back to the first question, how do you define a network? I mean, as we're pulling back the layers here, how you define a network is basically, you know what? There's so many different ways I can define this network. There's so many different ways we can work with you. Let's figure that piece out and see if it works.
Yeah, and it's clearly, like, in our agreement, contractually, there's prices for things that, like, if you want all this extra production bells and whistles, then that comes out of the revenue before the rev split kicks in. If you're producing all on your own, you're going to start from day one earning profit. So it's up to you how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole of post-production or assisted helping or whatnot. But yeah, I would say absolutely be flexible. Some people are coming to you because they want help, most likely, and they don't know what they don't know. That's one of the big things, because they'll think they want something, and then when I finally I'll sit down and have a conversation. I'm like, okay, so what kind of story do we want to make, or what kind of interview do we want to make, or someone, like, the biggest thing is, I have an idea for a podcast. I'm like, great, what's your outline? They're like, what? I said, think of it like a 30-minute sitcom. Do you have opening credits and then a cold open, or do you have cold open and then the credits? And, like, what is your formula? What's going to be cut and paste formulaically? Your story's going to be different every time, but, like, how are you going to outline your episode? They're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And usually they never come back, because that's work. That's work to think about it.
Yeah.
But if somebody's already thought about it, or they're willing to put in the effort, I'm like, all right, so, like, we'll amplify this. We'll help you.
So let's turn to we've been talking. I mean, clearly the point of the show is to understand how networks operate, but it's also give an insight to podcasters on how networks operate. So you've got, after this call, you've got to go and evaluate, someone who submitted a form saying, "Hey, I'm interested in joining the network."
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a podcaster, like what are you looking for? I mean, I noticed on your website, it's basically contact us. It's like, hey, and it's a simple form. If like, which I was not expecting. I was expecting something like more elaborate, but it's a simple like, contact us. And if you're interested in having your show and join the network, it's your name, and give us not even a pitch. It's just like, give us a little information. So what is it that you're looking for in a show that would want to join the network? Why would they want to join the network?
Well, the why and the what are different. So the what are we looking?
True.
Yeah, the why. What are we looking for? Is someone who's releasing consistently. Like if they're an existing podcast, new and existing are different. If they're an existing podcast, releasing consistently because that's the best way to build an audience. Do you have a lot of following already? Not that that's any kind of restriction at all, but in today's day and age, it obviously helps. For me, audio quality, again, I want people to be able to hear that brand, the BPN audio logo, and say, okay, I know at least this is going to sound good. Because I don't want to listen to anything that sounds terrible. I can't. I'm too much of a perfectionist to listen to something. And then I'm also like, oh God, there are so many tools now to clean up that and clean up that and clean up that, and it drives me nuts. Anyway, but we're looking for, like somebody who is serious about podcasting legitimately. And because like I was saying a second ago, that people are like, I have an idea. I say, all right, give me step one, and they never show up again. I'm like, okay, that's a good litmus test. But if they're already releasing, if they're already actively working, sending out, collecting email addresses, they have an Instagram account, they have TikTok, they know how to make video clips out of their content. Like this is all stuff that's kind of necessary at scale, and everybody knows their content the best. And so we can augment that, of course, with some AI and with some other tools. But like, if everybody is working seriously, it's going to be that much better. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who really take this seriously, because it can be fun, but it is a job. And you're not going to be a millionaire overnight. Sorry, that's the reality. So that's the what, I guess. So like in the contact form, you were talking about it at the top in big bold letters. It's like, if you were looking to submit your podcast, click here instead. And it goes to a form that collects some basic information. And, we're looking for proof of downloads if you're an existing podcast, because some people are like, I have 1,000 downloads a minute. And then they send in a screenshot and it's 30 over a year because they don't know how to read their own stats. And, that kind of stuff also weeds out a lot of people. But I'm looking for audio quality. I'm looking for user engagement. So now there's so many things like on Spotify, because I can just look up a podcast now. You give me the title, right? So I can go out and find it. Are there a lot of comments on Spotify? What are the ratings and the reviews look like on Apple? Because you can kind of get a ratio if there's, if it's a 5-star podcast, but there's only 4 ratings over 500 episodes, that's kind of a red flag. So I'm like, why is nobody rating this? That's weird. And
because the call to action hasn't been go rate my show. Right?
Could be. I mean, maybe I am seeing rating decline in general, but yes. But yeah, I look for signs that it's active and alive and has a following, because they're going to bring in their audience. We're going to extend our audience over them, and it needs to be mutually beneficial. So, I mean, that's ultimately like good quality, good story, good editing. If they're already producing themselves, I've had some great audio quality that starts with no theme music and is full of ums and pauses and mouth ticks and mic bumps and all sorts of things that I'm like, oh God, so like, I don't want that representing the brand.
I want to, I'm smiling. If anyone's not watching, I'm smiling here as Alan's talking, because you smirked. There was kind of like a jaded kind of tone of people doing X, Y, and Z. And I think like anyone that's listening to this, that's in the industry, that's a network operator, like we all are like, all right, we've all seen this. It's the eye roll. Mine is always, hold on, I need help growing my show. I'm like, what have you done already? Right.
Yeah,
So like, I think those of us that are always getting the same questions, we get jaded, but like, it just goes to show if you are trying to get in a network, these are, you're one of many that many of us who are at that level have seen. And now it's a matter of like, give me the bare minimum. Show me you've at least done the bare minimum, or this isn't the right network for you. And maybe another network would allow you to give you the wings you needed to grow to get to joining a BPN later. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to the tools, everyone's got the same keys to the same jet. So just talk to your jet and ask it, how do I fly to where I want to go? And it's going to help you now. This didn't exist 7 years ago. This didn't exist a year and a half ago. This is all brand new. So this, I love how things are transforming now. And it's just a really interesting time. But I've seen a lot of the same requests, same people who are like, I got this great idea. It's going to blow up and we're going to go viral. We're going to go big. I'm like, nah, I've heard that from everybody for the last 7 years. I am not saying it's not going to happen for you, but let's set some realistic expectations.
Well, what's interesting is I think we spoke January, and so we're recording this now in June of 2026. And I think maybe your numbers weren't right, but I'm going to go like, you've grown in the last 6 months of new shows from when you told me January versus now. And so that's interesting. That's like when Broadway's hurting, when at least I've heard it in my field, I'm sure you know better than I do, but it's like, it's also interesting, like you're still growing in terms of new shows that are joining the network.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the stats of iTunes, I brought this up a little while ago that, I think now there's 6-point-something million shows listed in iTunes. Maybe you know the number more than me. Maybe I think it's 350 or 400,000 that are actually considered active.
Yeah, like last I saw was like 400,000. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's incredibly small percentage, and that percentage keeps growing because people keep starting and stopping podcasts. They pod fade, they just quit, and I don't know how many, I forget what the stat is, but there's like a huge number of podcasts that don't have more than 6 episodes because, again, they're like, I'm not an overnight millionaire and I have no listeners after 3 episodes. So it takes work. But yeah, we're always growing because there's always something new to talk about. There's always new news. There are the people who have been in it from the beginning, like me. Like I have my podcast, my solo podcast, the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals, perhaps you've heard of that, is, that's been around longer than the network. And I have released one a week, every week, except for like maybe 3 or 4 weeks in the last 8 or 9 years, however long it's been. And just because it's fun for me and I love to do it. And there are others just like that. And there are others that want to do seasons and they come and go and they're more edited and scripted. So they will edit and release in a batch like Netflix does or like a TV show does. But there's always new people creating new things. And just because we have, a certain number of podcasts on the network already doesn't mean there's no room for somebody else, because a rising tide lifts all ships. And I want someone to come to the site, to find us online, to have, wherever it is that they have discovered any episode of our 15,000 episodes, and familiarize themselves with the fact that there's a lot of content that may be a couple years old that's still very, very good. And so now the technical challenge is, how do we kind of surface that? I'm looking at a kind of not a rewrite, but an augmentation of the current site now to allow users to try to find, because we have so much content, to try to find more, to do like a recommendation engine that can actually be like, okay, so you've listened to this much of that and this much of that. So that's the content we know you like. How about these other episodes or these other shows, or this person you like Greg Wasserman. There's this other guy, Alan Seals, that is similar in industry. Maybe you'd like episodes with him too. So getting that kind of cross promotion in terms of the network is what I'm focusing on now.
So to that point, I usually ask this later on, but it's making me think of it now. If you were to start, BPN today, since you're going through an augmentation, how would you start a network today?
I would put more, in hindsight, I would start it with much more of a marketing budget. Because we originally, for like the first year, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we were like, oh, we're bringing in these podcasts and we're consolidating everything and we're going to we had the same delusions. We were like, we're going to be overnight millionaires. It's going to be great. No, I mean, we were in terms of business profitability, like we were successful, but it was like, wait a second, we actually have to work on this. And the money we're making, we have to put back into growing ourselves. We can't just expect it to go, the expectation of like growing viral and becoming the next Mr. Beast, like that's never going to happen for anybody except Mr. Beast. So like be the best you can be. And that's what we learned. So I would go back and say, all right, we're going to focus on, at the beginning, I would focus on launching with more marketing to grow the shows we already had instead of trying to quickly have a mass of lots of shows. Because again, it goes back to the quality, and we've shifted like that. Because before, we would take in a lot of podcasts that maybe now we wouldn't take, and because we wanted the content. But now, at this point in the company's history, I want the quality.
So then how do you balance, right? Because like if you're needing more shows, it drives more revenue, right? More shows, more programmatic ads, therefore you get revenue, which means you can reinvest it. So how would you start a network today? You would just upfront, you would bootstrap it more and put more of your money into just marketing and growing these initial shows, so that arbitrage model in that regards? Or
we took an investor. We had an angel investor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had an angel investor, and she believed in us. She believed in the mission, and wrote a nice check with a few zeros on it, and away we went. And yeah, I would reallocate our efforts a little bit to less internal growth and more external growth.
And I guess the fact that you know how to code, you know how to vibe code, you know how to Claude code, it's like, all right, for $200, there you go. So invest in the tools would be something you would do initially. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot to invest because it's also inexpensive. But I would invest the time. I would invest the time in making the tools. And yeah, I would probably come and I would hire you. And I would say, I need you to come sell some ads, and sell the company, and then work on marketing. And ultimately, definitely more on marketing, more on just external brand awareness. Because like we've slowly permeated globally. Like literally, I saw listener stats. I was looking at global listener stats, and there's downloads in Antarctica. We have scientists who are, the only thing down there is scientists, right? So right. We have like scientists down there listening to Broadway podcast. Like that kind of blows my mind. So literally all 7 continents, we've got presence. But it's one of those things where knowing what I know now, my background is in tech. It's not in sales. It's not in marketing. And so now I would literally, if you want to get down like the ones and zeros of it, everything should have UTM tags. Everything should be affiliate tracking. Like we need to behind the scenes know where all of our traffic is coming from. And so we didn't know to look for that stuff at first because my producer, or my co-founder was a producer who was, she's putting theater shows together. She hires marketing teams to do that kind of stuff. So she didn't know about it. I didn't know about it because I just wrote the tools that the marketing teams use. I didn't, So it's one of those things where like now wearing so many hats in a small startup network, there's a lot of different things that I would do differently at the beginning, but the big one is marketing.
It goes back to how each network operator starts, the salesperson, the programmer, the audio engineer, and we don't know what we don't know, but where would you invest knowing what you don't know that would have helped you on day one? It's interesting here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. I mean, it depends. And then COVID too. I mean, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have spent a bunch of money on a studio. We had a physical studio then, gave it up during COVID, and didn't get a studio again until like last year. So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, we actually didn't need to be in person. Like, it helps conversationally sometimes, but you can still get great audio now with the tools that exist now.
Do you think a network should have a studio?
No, not necessarily. I don't really care either way. It depends on who your guests are. It depends on what your format is. If you're in a place where you have the financial means to pay for a studio, and then you can give it to a team of people who do your editing and make your multicam and your social clips and everything, like, great. Do it. It does look better. But you can also do that now. I mean, we're recording here in Riverside. Riverside has an editor built in. Riverside makes clips. I'm still on Squadcast, even though Descript is shutting it down. I like Squadcast because it's been rock solid for years until the last few months when Descript is shutting it down. So it's one of those things where whatever works for you, build on that. Because that, again, if you put more friction in front of you, it's going to be friction. It's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be easy. So, do you need a studio? Yeah. I mean, you got to decorate it. What if you have more than one podcast recording in that space? Do you have the same set for everyone, or do you have configurable cameras? Do you have different backdrops? What are you doing? So how much investment do you want to have? Because if you're in a physical space, that jacks up the cost so much, especially if you want things to look different.
How'd you guys end up doing it?
Oh, for us? Oh, so we partner with another company that does billboards in Times Square. And so we market them, they market us as a quid pro quo, and then we use their space when it's available. And I've become embedded with them a little bit more than I expected to be. But yeah, so it's welcometotimesquare.com. Shout out to them. But they have this office space that they were only using for recording once a week, every Friday. And the other 6 days, it was just sitting there completely unused. And so through a mutual friend, they reached out to me and were like, yeah, you come in and use the space, promote us, you can use it, and away we go. So, it's great. It's a great space to have. It's right in the heart of Times Square, so people before their shows can come in, or before, not after, that's late, but before their shows, they can come and sit down and record for a little while. And I have my own camera gear that I brought in, and the podcasters, I tell them, if you want your own props or backdrops, signs or whatever, that's all on you. I'll do the audio video recording. Everything else is on you. So people bring their own things to kind of make it all decorative a little bit differently.
I love that. I mean, I'm sure that's a very unique, if anyone's listening, going like, where could I figure that? I mean, it's just, that's why I say life is about time relationships. It was literally just the right time and relationship that worked for you. But that is a unique kind of perspective you were able to do. And then we talked about, the Webby U1. So what other, I don't know if it's revenue streams, out of the box things that you're doing from the network that others probably aren't even thinking about? Like, once again, you don't know what you don't know. I never would have thought, well, who's in the advertising space that might have a studio open, right? Like, it's just so happens. So, like, any ideas?
Something that I've developed that I've told a couple other network owners about, and they're begging me to make this as a service, is a podcast network specific profit and loss generator. So how do you calculate profit and loss based on multiple campaigns across thousands of episodes, across hundreds of podcasts every month or every other month or whatever cadence you're sending out your profit and loss statements? And so it used to take somebody close to like a week and a half or 2 weeks to do all this every month, or every other month is what we tried to do, because it was a cumbersome process. And now I have a system that I have developed on my own that I'm sitting here looking at on my other screen, because I have to finish paying the bills later as well. But it automatically uses the the API with Megaphone, pulls in all the campaign data, uses the API with QuickBooks, pulls in all of our bank statements, knows when we got paid for all of the campaigns that it sees. Matt pulls the analytics out of Megaphone also through the API, and I set minimum, everyone has a minimum payout threshold, so that's all set in there. And then I say, all right, click and generate, and then it says, oh, you received payment for this campaign, this campaign, this campaign. This is gonna get included in our P&L statement for this month. Cool. And then it takes me like 2 hours, like an hour and a half, where it used to take almost 2 weeks. So, and then it uses the QuickBooks API. Once it knows what it's going to pay everybody, it goes out and adds those as bills into QuickBooks. And then I just go back into QuickBooks. I do a quick manual scan and be like, yep, nothing's crazy. We're not paying anyone $20,000 by mistake. Okay, cool. Boom, send. And then that's it. Like, I've saved myself literally weeks of work by vibe coding this this custom application for us to manage our profit and loss statements. So that's something else that I think I want to license to other networks because it seems very usable. And and in terms of other revenue streams, I mean, there's always the influencer posts, there's the newsletter posts, there's your standard things there, the sponsored things. We have done things where we've turned off all of our ads except for one spot, one pre-roll spot, and then maybe one mid-roll spot. So you're buying out the network. You have ad exclusivity across the entire network. So that's something you're not competing with anybody. We've actually given previews to new musicals. Like we'll play songs as we'll temporarily remove the audio logo and swap in like a little file of someone saying, you know, I'm a famous person, listen to me singing this brand new song that you've never heard before. Here's 30 seconds of it. Great. Now you want to hear the whole thing? Go download the album. Now back to the episode. And so, you know, like, again, we're not married to any one format, any one thing, but we come up with these ideas and we're like, all right, so let's be special, let's be different, let's be new. And we use the tools that we have. Historically, I've used the tools that we have with the features that we've got on the systems that we use. But then again, now in the last year, literally just the last year, we can develop almost anything we want to augment this. So, you know, I would say add the exclusive ad buyout is a cool thing. Offering podcasting as a service. We offer, like, for our editors, we allow them to be hired out independently. We don't take a cut of that. So, like, if somebody just wants plain editing, we just, you know, give anyone can edit. Anyone can be hired to be an editor. We have live events. We do.
You guys do.
Yeah, we partner up with the Museum of Broadway, and we do some live events there sometimes. Like I talked about at Broadway Con, that's like we come out with like 15 or so sessions from the weekend. That's just tons of live events.
Are you paying a sponsorship fee to be there, or are they ultimately paying you guys we want you there because we know what you're bringing as the value to Broadway Con?
Neither one pays either because they give us the room for free because we are bringing in ticket buyers for them. People are going to come, in theory, buy more of the convention tickets so they can come in and see the guests that we're having on our podcasts in these live rooms.
It's I think once again I go back to like Mark. He's like, they pay us to come, so it's like, all right, each operator can decide, do we want to do a quid pro quo and just in trade, or, you know, it's a line item and it's a business opportunity, right?
Yeah. No, for us it's great because, again, we go where the rabid fans are, and we have the challenge of in the industry, in the theater industry, a lot of people aren't technical. It's just who they are, and so they don't know to look and they're younger. They don't know to look on platforms or whatnot for podcasts, and so a lot of the challenge that we have with them is getting them from social into podcast land, because they're all over social. Everyone's following social stuff all the time, and I have no shame. I will ask any of my guests to collaborate on any of my posts. and I have some big names who still accept collab requests. So I'm like, all right, we'll keep doing this. And everything grows. You never know. I mean, what is it? Wayne Gretzky said, right? You miss all the shots you never take. And give within the reason of, business acumen. You don't want to just like spend money on everything, but especially when you are in a territory that is still, as I still call podcasting, the Wild West, because there are so many different rules and so many different ecosystems. So why not? Who's to say that what you're starting or what you want to try or what you think is cool isn't going to be the next cool thing? You don't know until you try it. So, we want to do more live events. We were doing ticketed events for a while and just got out of the habit of it because one of the biggest draws got into a show, and so he didn't have time to do live events anymore. So it's one of those things where, I guess, yeah, try things. Just try things within reason, intelligently, and make sure, the big thing though is just that you have the tracking in place to know first what your success is and then how do you measure it.
And that's something, like you said, you wish you would have known or done earlier.
Yeah.
Would have led to better P&L, better the growth still would have been there, right? Or you would have just been investing in what was growing because you knew it.
I think probably we would have grown faster because we relied on word of mouth. Like, we did very little paid advertising, or very little marketing, because we're like, oh, we have every name possible in our inventory. People are going to find us. And while some did, there were still so many who didn't. And then also, one of the challenges we had to overcome, especially this was 2019, right? And the people who are the decision makers behind marketing budgets for our ad buys are boomers. And we would be like, oh yeah, we got a podcast network. And then go, that's awesome. How do I find a podcast? And we're like, all right, give me your phone. And then I show them iTunes or Apple Podcast and whatever year it was. And like, oh, I've had this here the whole time. I said, yes, you've had this here the whole time. And so when they finally realized the power of the medium, that then our friction started resolving itself in terms of getting advertisers on. But still, that would have come a lot faster had we had the bigger audience to start based on paid ads and better marketing.
Makes sense. Where do you see friction? I mean, you started this so long ago, audio probably only first, video being a thing, but like with the talent you've got on the network, I have to imagine talent has their own struggles when it comes to, even if PR agencies are coming to you saying, hey, we need this person, video adds its own level of complexity. So how has video impacted BPN's growth or the adjustments you're making to just the shows?
It's been good for us because I was at Google when Google Podcasts, the app, was released, and then when it was shut down and got absorbed into YouTube. Like, I was there. There was a lot of team presence in New York. So I talked to the teams, literally. I was like, guys, you guys are messing up podcasting. Here's how you can make it better. And they're like, we don't care. Brand safety. Here's our rules, whatever. And I get that. Google is a multinational conglomerate, and they have brand safety guidelines and so many things that they're working with on YouTube. I get it. They're going to be their own ecosystem. But in order to compete with that ecosystem, because when YouTube came out and everyone was like, oh crap, of course it could be video. Why didn't I think of that? And then everyone started making video, but they had nowhere to put it except for YouTube. And YouTube doesn't do dynamic streaming, again, because of brand safety. So it reads your episode once, you get one download, it bakes in whatever dynamic ads you have, and then it never reads your feed again unless you tell it to. And it didn't used to even do that. And so by that point, Spotify had already bought Megaphone. And Spotify said, we need to compete with YouTube and get podcasting back. Let's keep people on Spotify. So Spotify reached out to us, Megaphone reached out to us. What's 26? So this is early 24, I want to say, and they were like, "Hey, we're developing video within Megaphone. Will you beta test?" And I said, "Yeah, hell yeah, we are." And so because we got the access within the network to upload video files into our as podcasts long before the general public before everyone could on Spotify for creators. And it's still true, and it was even more true then, that because they want to keep people on Spotify by giving them content to watch. People need to create that content, so they need to be rewarded for keeping that content. The audio ad insertions pay out less than video ad insertions. So for us, it is beneficial to upload as much video as we can, because the same ad marker is going to pay more when someone watches it versus listens to it.
What about Apple? Have you guys started thinking about that, since Megaphone's not in Apple?
I've talked to Apple. Apple is working with Megaphone to have a native integration. So we're still going to be able to upload into Megaphone exactly as we are now. And just like it goes to Spotify, it's also going to go to Apple within any number of months now. So we're just waiting. I don't need to reinvent the wheel there.
What? You're a tech guy. Go build it.
Listen, I tried to get in with Apple Podcasts once, and I was like, guys, come on. Like, again, talking about the discoverability.
Yeah.
I mean, you got this teeny tiny little app with like one search field and some pretty generic categories. I'm like, how am I supposed to really find what I want? Like, you're not helping me. You're recommending your content to me. You're not helping me find what I want. And they were like, no, they weren't interested. They're like, Apple is a hardware company. People think of them as, this great software and whatnot, but Apple is a device company. They make hardware. They just happen to make good software to run on it so that you can keep buying the hardware. But they don't ultimately care about podcasts. Hot take. I mean, or maybe it's not a hot take. I don't know. But I think business-wise, what reason do they have? Because on that same iPhone, I can use iHeart or Spotify or a web, the BPN website or any other thing that I want to listen to it. I don't need Apple. Apple's actually, Apple Podcast is actually one of the least friendliest podcast players I have now.
Which is interesting, because what is it? James, in his annual report, still has Apple rated as the best user experience.
Does he really? I don't know. I mean, for playing what you already know, yes. And I have to come clean. I still use Apple to listen to the podcast that I want to listen to. But when I'm looking to discover things, I don't use it. I will discover things on the web or on Spotify or whatnot. And then once I know what I want, literally because I've been locked into the Apple ecosystem, because I started out listening to podcasts on Apple Podcasts, that I just add it there and I'm fine, but in terms of like discovering stuff, I can't remember the last time I've used Apple Podcasts to discover something new. It's literally been years.
I mean, I think it's also working in the industry. I do the same. I mean, I'll look at other apps just to see what's being recommended. Naturally, I have my own newsletter, but I follow a bunch of other discovery newsletters. I get to talk to great people like you, and this is the great segue, right? Like, I always like to ask, what's one podcast that you would recommend that people should listen to? Claire, we've already mentioned yours, so that will be in the show notes. But is there another podcast that needs to get discovered that people aren't discovering?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's one of the most popular ones, so it's probably not. I won't say it needs to be discovered, but my go-to right now is the Seth Meyers Lonely Island podcast. Because listening to the four of them, they are like real life best friends anyway, but they went through a decade of hell of trauma bonding over the stress of SNL. And do you know the podcast?
No.
What? Okay. All right. Here we go. Seth Meyers Lonely Island podcast.
Who's they?
The Lonely Island, like the Dick in a Box guys.
Okay.
Yeah,
so Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg and Akiva and Yorma. So the three of them and Seth Meyers, it's this deep dive. Every episode, it started out being every episode was a deep dive into a digital short that they did over their entire career. And they're not done with their career yet, but they've gotten so popular and so big talking about the behind the scenes of shows. They do whole episodes where now they only answer listener Q&A. The whole thing is just a giant collection of inside jokes, and so like it's a serialized podcast by accident, because if you listen, you start with the latest episode, they're going to be talking about inside jokes that you won't get unless you've listened to the first 20 episodes. So I just think it's fun. It actually makes me laugh out loud because they're funny people and it's my sense of humor. So I enjoy that.
There you go. All right. I will have to go check it out, especially since Andy Sandberg is who everyone used to say was my doppelganger.
I can see that. Yeah. If you had slightly bigger hair.
I'm like, why? Because we're both Jewish and that's basically it. Like, come on. I got Andy Sandberg, and then, what was it? The guy from New Girl is always the one I've gotten as well.
Max Greenfield.
There you go, Max Greenfield.
Yeah.
All right, so then the follow-up to that one is, everyone complains that there's so many podcasts. No one complains that there's so many books. So what's one book that you would recommend? It could be a children's book, could be a Broadway, it could be any book that you would want to give a shout-out going like, hey, this is one I would recommend. While you think of that, I mean, mine always is the one over my corner here, shoulder. It's Ryan Berman's Courageous podcast host and Return on Courage.
Do you know Bellamy Young from Scandal? I think she played the president. Anyway, she's one of the main characters in Scandal. She wrote a book called The Ethereum Code, and it's a sci-fi book. I love sci-fi. Like when I'm not podcasting, I like comedy or sci-fi. And so,
yet you don't do that on stage when you're acting, or you're one man, right? Didn't you recently do a one man show, or weren't you on theater recently?
Well, I used to be an actor. I'm lead producing a show.
Okay,
but I'm not on stage. I'm not part of the cast. So anyway, yeah, The Ethereum Code by Bellamy Young. It's kind of YA science fiction, but it's the dystopian future, and I think it's written well. I like it a lot.
Isn't it funny? No matter how old we are, we still like the YA stuff, because it's like, all right, the dystopian, it caters towards us no matter what.
I also, on audiobook, I just listened to This Story Might Save Your Life. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's a romance thriller about two podcasters.
There you go. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, This Story Might Save Your Life, a novel by Tiffany Crum.
There you go.
Who I interviewed on another one of my podcasts. Was It Chance? That's another fun one.
There you go. Well, Ellen, we're at time here. Is there anything we haven't covered that you think we should talk about?
I mean, if you want to, do you want to plug Calendar PA in terms of scheduling?
There you go. Every network, you struggle with calendars. You struggle with scheduling. So Ellen's built, once again, another tool. Take it away, Ellen.
Okay. calendarpa.com. And then, Greg, if you sign up, put your referral link in there and other people sign up, then you get credit for it. It is referral based. It'll pay you. I was tired of the constant back and forth of when are you available? How about this time? Okay, then that person took 2 days to respond. By the time they responded, my availability changed. And, like the back and forth of all this crap, that everybody plays. And then, okay, so I've got 2 co-hosts and I'm the editor or the producer, but I have to be there. Like, you've got to schedule so many different things. So I, after a conversation with a friend of mine back in December, literally started January 1st, 2026, had a working prototype of this whole group scheduling system, which now doesn't even need a link to book with people, because I have an AI assistant within Calendar PA that you can instruct and ask to schedule for you. But you can create shared booking types. So if you and I were co-hosting and your producer's co-hosting, we all are part of the same booking type. The guest gets that one link or talks to the assistant and says, all right, here's where I'm available. And then it books with all of us. It just removes so much, again, friction. I use this word friction. It just removes all of the friction of trying to find the best time to book with somebody, because you can specify it ahead of time and everybody's kept in sync. Anyway, that's my shameless plug, calendarpa.com.
And I'm sure every network could appreciate that.
I am actively, as we're recording, about to finish agency and team features for bulk pricing, and I'm going to give it to network owners for free in exchange for helping me shake out the bugs.
There you go. Well, on that note, Ellen, It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
You too.
As I say, life is about time relationships, and I love literally 5 years ago, almost to the date, is when we first connected, and now we get to record, and who knows where it goes from here. But thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thank you.
Well, you've made it this far, and I truly appreciate it. Like, most of us don't make it to the end of an episode. So if you give me a few extra minutes, as I said at the top, let me share some of my thoughts from my conversations with Alan. To start, I brought up BPN's role as this never-ending discoverability engine, a site built to connect every piece of the Broadway podcast world. But the more we talked, the more I realized that BPN is really designed as a connective tissue for the entire theater podcast community, with each technical and operational move rooted in realities and values of that world. Besides that, there are a few other things that I walked away from this conversation. First, what surprised me was how Alan, with all the technical and engineering background he has, said that if he'd started BPN over, he'd focus more on marketing up front. For someone so comfortable building systems and automation, picking marketing as the missing piece says a lot about what actually drives growth for a network. Most operators think their technical platform is the hard part, but here he's open about where he would put resources if he could do it all again. Second, he started sonic branding right from the jump, not as an afterthought. And I've heard some others talk about this, but not as consistent as I would think. The BPN ident, the short, consistent audio signatures, are everywhere across the network. For Alan, sonic branding was never about celebrity names, but setting the standard for quality. It's a subtle move, but it shifts how both listeners and advertisers see the network's value. Most creators don't expect branding to carry so much long-term weight, but for the Broadway Podcast Network, it baked in from day one. And there's the way he leveraged the big names that were guests, kind of like radio stations do, to help with that branding. I think someone else could figure out how to do this. Third, his willingness to say yes and find ways to work with creators, brands, and companies in nearly any configuration. Whether it's producing a branded docuseries for Disney Broadway, partnering at live events, or packaging, editing, and guest booking, the model flexes to fit the opportunity. That isn't just being opportunistic, it's building a business that can plug into the Broadway ecosystem, wherever performances and content overlap. Most networks stick to a single lane. That kind of openness changes what a quote-unquote network can mean in practice, and how the yes mentality for some is a distraction, and for others, it can be a power flex. Fourth, the last thing that kind of took away from this is that criteria for accepting shows goes way beyond follower count. Alan's looking for creators who regularly release, care obsessively about audio quality, and, the shocker, are actually doing the hard work: social, video, engagement, even running their own outlines. If building a show isn't something you're willing to treat like a job, it's probably not going to work out. And when you think about it, close to 200 shows on the network, and the work that those hosts do in Broadway, the extra work is really a lot of work. But doing it offers you access to what Alan's built, the community, and the additional opportunities in one's career. Just think about the relationship the network offers. There's a lot there to sit with, and I'm curious what you learned. Once again, thank you for tuning in. To those who've rated and reviewed and reached out with comments, I thank you. Please go rate, leave me a review. I know that's how these things work. As I say, life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where one conversation is going to take you. This is why I'm able to have this show, provide these great conversations. This is why I love networking. You have no clue where listening to these conversations will take you, now or in the future. But I can guarantee you, your future self will thank you for tuning in. I live on LinkedIn. Reach out. Let's talk. To those who have already done so, I appreciate you. That means a lot, and that also means this podcast is doing exactly what I intended it to do. I have a newsletter that promotes podcasts to listen to, as discovery, as we've talked about, is incredibly difficult. It's on my LinkedIn. Subscribe and find podcasts reviewed weekly, along with my guest recommendations. Subscribe where you listen to this show. New episodes come out every Thursday, wherever you consume a podcast. Until next time, I appreciate you.